Jake Collins sat in his small cabin aboard the human ship. Tara's voice. He looked out the window at the stars moving past them. The ship was getting close to Nexus Prime, a big space station where many different alien races came to do business. Jake was going there to talk to the Zephyrians about mining rights on some planets. Jake was 52 years old and looked like any other diplomat. He had gray hair and wore simple clothes. His hands were soft and he spoke in a quiet voice. People who met him thought he was just a normal man who liked to talk and make deals. They were wrong about that. Lieutenant Maria Santos knocked on his door. She was his helper on this trip. Maria was young and worried about everything. She came in when Jake told her to enter. "Sir, we will reach the station in 2 hours," Maria said. She held a datapad in her hands. "I have been reading about the Zephyrians again. They are not nice people." Jake smiled at her. "Maria, you worry too much. I have been doing this job for 20 years. Talking is always better than fighting." "But sir, they have killed other diplomats before. The reports say they like to use force to get what they want. Maybe we should bring more guards." Jake shook his head. "That would make them think we do not trust them. We only have 2 guards, and that is enough. Besides, this is a neutral station. They cannot attack us there." Maria did not look happy, but she nodded. "Yes, sir. I will go check on the guards and make sure everything is ready." After Maria left, Jake opened his briefcase. Inside were normal papers and a small device that looked like a pen. But hidden under the false bottom were other things. Things that Maria and the crew did not know about. Jake's real job was not just talking to aliens. He had another name that some people knew. They called him the Reaper. Jake had been killing threats to humanity for 20 years. He used his diplomat cover to get close to dangerous aliens. Then he would eliminate them. The government had sent him on this mission because the Zephyrians were planning to attack human colonies. They needed to be stopped. The ship's captain, Bill Murphy, called Jake on the communication system. "Ambassador, we are approaching the station now. You should come to the bridge." Jake closed his briefcase and walked to the bridge. Through the big windows he could see Nexus Prime. It was huge with spinning sections and many docking ports. Ships from all over the galaxy came here to trade and make deals. "It is beautiful," Maria said as she stood next to Jake. "Yes, it is," Jake agreed. But he was not thinking about the station's beauty. He was thinking about the Zephyrians waiting for him inside. His sources had told him they were planning something. They thought humans were weak and wanted to prove it. Captain Murphy guided the ship to docking port 7. "We are here, Ambassador. Good luck with your talks." Jake thanked the captain and gathered his things. Maria and the 2 guards, Sergeant Lopez and Corporal Davis, would come with him to the station. The guards were good soldiers, but they did not know what Jake really was. They walked through the docking tube into Nexus Prime. The station was busy with aliens of many different types. Some looked like giant insects, others like lizards or birds. The air smelled strange, and the gravity felt a little different from Earth. A tall alien with blue skin met them at the entrance. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, Ambassador Collins. I am Station Manager Corin. The Zephyrians are waiting for you in Conference Room 12. Jake nodded. "Thank you. We are ready to begin." As they walked through the station, Jake noticed things that Maria and the guards did not see. There were more Zephyrian warriors than usual walking around. They were trying to look casual, but Jake could tell they were watching him. His trained eyes also saw that some of the security cameras had been turned off. The Zephyrians looked like giant praying mantises but walked on 2 legs. They were 7 feet tall and had sharp claws. Their skin was green and hard like armor. They were known for being violent and greedy. "Sir," Maria whispered, "there are a lot of them here today." "I noticed," Jake said calmly. "It just means they are taking these talks seriously." But Jake knew the truth. The Zephyrians were not here to talk. They were here to make a point. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be killed easily. They had done this before to other races. They reached Conference Room 12. It was a large room with a big table in the middle. 12 Zephyrian warriors stood around the table. Their leader, War Chief Vexstar, was the biggest one. He had scars on his face and arms from many battles. "You may wait outside," Jake told the guards. "This is a private meeting." Sergeant Lopez looked worried. "Sir, are you sure?" "We should stay." "With you, it will be fine," Jake said with his gentle smile. "The Zephyrians respect strength, but they also respect trust. If I bring guards into their meeting, they will think I am afraid." The guards did not like it, but they followed orders. They would wait outside the door. Maria stayed with them. She had a bad feeling about this meeting. Jake walked into the room alone. The door closed behind him with a soft click. He set his briefcase on the table and looked at the Zephyrians. They were all staring at him like he was food. "War Chief Vexstar," Jake said politely. "Thank you for meeting with me. I hope we can work together." Vexstar made a sound like laughter. "We will see, little human, we will see." Jake sat down and opened his briefcase. He pulled out his papers and put on his reading glasses. He looked like a harmless old man getting ready to have a boring business meeting. The Zephyrians thought they knew what would happen next, they thought. The human would beg and try to make a deal. They thought he would be scared when they showed their weapons. They were about to learn that they were very wrong about Jake Collins. Jake sat at the big table and looked at his papers. The 12 Zephyrian warriors stood around him like a circle of death. Their leader, War Chief Vexstar, sat across from Jake. The alien's eyes were black and cold. "Let us begin," Jake said in his calm voice. "I believe we can find a way for both our people to benefit from the mining rights on the Kepler system planets." Vexstar clicked his claws on the table. "Your people want to take what is ours. The Kepler system belongs to the Zephyrian Collective." "The planets are not claimed by anyone," Jake replied. "The Galactic Council has rules about this. We can share the mining rights." The other Zephyrians made angry buzzing sounds. They did not like Jake's words. Vexstar held up one claw to make them quiet. "Humans think they are so smart," Vexstar said. "You come here with your soft words and weak bodies. You think talking will solve everything." Jake kept his face calm. "Talking has prevented many wars. It is better than fighting." "Fighting is what makes a race strong," Vexstar said. He stood up and walked around the table. "The Zephyrians have conquered 40 star systems. We are warriors. We take what we want." "And what do you want?" Jake asked. Vexstar stopped behind Jake's chair. "We want humans to know their place. You are weak. You should serve stronger races like us." Jake wrote something on his paper. "I see, so you are not interested in sharing the mining rights?" "We are not interested in sharing anything with humans," Vexstar said. "Your race is soft. You will not last long in this galaxy." The war chief walked back to his seat. He made a small gesture with his claw. Jake saw it but did not react. It was a signal. The trap was about to spring. "Perhaps we should take a break," Jake suggested. "We could continue tomorrow." "No," Vexstar said. "We will finish this today." One of the Zephyrian warriors moved to the door. Jake heard a soft beeping sound. The door was now locked from the outside. The communication system in the room went dead. They were cutting off all contact with the outside. Outside the room, Maria Santos was getting worried. She had been trying to contact the ambassador for 10 minutes, but her communication device was not working. "Sergeant Lopez," she said to the guard, "something is wrong. I cannot reach the ambassador." Lopez tried his own device. "Mine is not working either." "Maybe it is the station's systems." But Maria knew better. She had a bad feeling about this from the start. "We need to get in there." Lopez tried the door. It would not open. "It is locked. The controls are not responding." Inside the room, Jake was still sitting calmly at the table. But now all 12 Zephyrians had moved closer to him. They formed a tight circle around his chair. "You seem nervous, War Chief," Jake said. "Is there a problem?" Vexstar laughed. It was a harsh sound like breaking glass. "The problem is that there are too many humans in this galaxy. We are going to fix that problem." "I do not understand," Jake said, but he understood perfectly. This was exactly what he had expected. Today, the galaxy will learn what happens to Races that oppose the Zephyrian collective, Vexstar said. Your death will send a message to all other humans. The Zephyrians began to pull out their weapons. They had plasma guns and sharp blades. Jake was surrounded by 12 alien warriors, each one strong enough to kill a human with their bare claws. You are making a mistake, Jake said quietly. I am a diplomat. I have diplomatic immunity. Your immunity ends here, Vexstar said. No one will ever know what really happened in this room. We will say you attacked us first. Jake nodded slowly. I see, so this was never about mining rights. This was about showing the galaxy that humans are weak, Vexstar said. When word spreads that we killed Earth's ambassador, other races will think twice before dealing with your kind. The Zephyrians moved even closer. Their weapons were pointed. At Jake from all sides, there was no way out. At least that is what they thought. Jake reached into his jacket pocket. The Zephyrians raised their weapons, thinking he was going for a gun. Instead, Jake pulled out a small badge. It was his diplomatic immunity badge. You are right, Jake said. My immunity ends here. He placed the badge on the table and pushed it away from him. The simple action seemed strange to the Zephyrians. Why would he give up his protection? That will not save you, Vexstar said. I am not trying to save myself, Jake replied. I am freeing myself. The Zephyrians did not understand what he meant. They saw a soft human in a business suit sitting at a table. He had no weapons and no way to fight back. He was trapped. Jake's whole body seemed to relax. The worried look left his face. His eyes became very cold and very still. When he spoke again, his voice was different. It was quiet but deadly. Think. You, Jake said. You have just removed the only thing that was keeping you alive. Vexstar was confused. What are you talking about? For the past 20 years, I have been bound by diplomatic rules, Jake said. I could not hurt anyone while I was representing Earth as a diplomat, but you just changed that. Jake stood up slowly. The Zephyrians kept their weapons pointed at him, but something had changed. The human did not look afraid anymore. He looked dangerous. You want to know about humans? Jake asked. You want to know what makes us weak? He began to walk around the table. The Zephyrians turned to follow him with their weapons, but they seemed less sure of themselves now. Humans are not weak because we talk instead of fight, Jake said. We are dangerous because we choose when to fight. And you just made that choice for me. Vexstar's confusion was turning to anger. You are one human against 12 warriors. You have no weapons. Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. War Chief. Let me tell you about the 47 Zephyrian strike teams that have disappeared over the past 10 years. The ones that were sent to attack human colonies but never came back. The room became very quiet. Vexstar's eyes went wide. Let me tell you about the Corvin death squad that was found dead on Titan Station. Oh, the Frex assassination team that vanished on Europa. They all had one thing in common. Jake stopped walking and looked directly at Vexstar. They all met me. The conference room became very quiet. The 12 Zephyrian warriors stared at Jake Collins with their black eyes. War Chief Vexstar took a step back from the table. You are lying, Vexstar said, but his voice was not as strong as before. You are just a diplomat? Jake smiled that cold smile again. I am Jake Collins, Earth's ambassador to the Outer Rim. I am also Agent 77 Alpha of Earth's Special Operations Division, but most people know me by another name. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small device. It looked like a normal pen, but when Jake pressed a button on it, the device began to glow. Some people call me the Reaper, Jake said. The Zephyrians had heard that name before. Stories were told in dark corners of space stations about a human who appeared from nowhere to kill threats to Earth. Most aliens thought the Reaper was just a scary story that humans told to frighten their enemies. The Reaper is a myth, Vexstar said. A story to make humans seem stronger than they are. Let me tell you about the Corvin Death Squad, Jake said. He began to walk around the table again. 15 elite warriors sent to destroy the human colony on New Boston. They were found dead in their ship, floating in space. No wounds, no signs of a fight, they just died. One of the Zephyrian warriors made a nervous buzzing sound. Jake looked at him and smiled. The Rex assassination team was more interesting, Jake continued. They were sent to kill the human governor on Titan Station. 8 of the deadliest killers in the galaxy. They were found in their hotel room, arranged around a table like they were having dinner. Each one had died exactly the same way. You could not have done that, Vexstar said. You are old and weak. I am 52 years old, Jake agreed. I have been killing threats to humanity for 20 years. Do you know how many alien warriors I have eliminated in that time? Jake pressed another button on his device. The lights in the room began to flicker. 2,347, Jake said. That includes 47 Zephyrian strike teams, 12 Corvan death squads, and 36 Rex assassination units. The Zephyrians were starting to look worried. Their weapons were still pointed at Jake, but they seemed less sure about using them. You want to know how I did it? Jake asked. The same way I'm going to do it to you? Jake pressed a third button on his device. Suddenly, the artificial gravity in the room turned off. The Zephyrians began to float in the air, their heavy bodies, not used to zero gravity. You see, Jake said as he floated calmly near the ceiling, humans are good at fighting in space. We have been doing it for a long time. But you Zephyrians are ground fighters. You need gravity to use your strength. Jake's business suit began to change. Hidden panels opened up, revealing a black combat suit underneath. His briefcase unfolded. Into a compact weapon system, the harmless Diplomat was gone. In his place was something much more dangerous. Impossible, Vexstar said as he spun helplessly in the air. You were searched when you entered the station. I was searched by your people, Jake said. They found exactly what I wanted them to find, a few papers, a pen, and a briefcase. They did not find the real equipment. Jake's weapon system came. Online, it was small but deadly, designed for close combat in zero gravity. The Zephyrians tried to aim their plasma guns at him, but they could not control their movement in the weightless environment. Let me explain something about humans, Jake said as he moved through the air with practiced ease. We are not weak, because we prefer to talk. We are dangerous because we only fight when we have to, and when we do fight, we fight to win. Vexstar managed to fire his plasma gun, but the shot went wide. Jake moved like a dancer in the zero gravity, using the walls and ceiling to push himself around the room. You made 2 mistakes today, Jake said. First, you thought being a diplomat made me harmless. Second, you thought humans were weak because we try to avoid violence. Jake activated a small thruster system built into his suit. Now he could move, even faster through the weightless room. The Zephyrians were like big insects caught in a web. Violence is not strength, Jake said. Violence is a tool. And like any tool, it works best when used by someone who knows how to use it. One of the Zephyrian warriors tried to grab Jake as he flew past. Jake caught the alien's arm and used its own momentum to spin it around. The warrior crashed into 2 of his companions, sending all 3 spinning across the room. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? Jake asked. It is not our weapons or our ships. It is our ability to become what we need to become. Jake pulled out a small blade from his suit. It was not very big, but it was sharp and designed for fighting in zero gravity. I have been Jake Collins the Diplomat for 20 years, he said. I have signed peace treaties, negotiated trade agreements, and prevented wars. But when someone threatens humanity, I become something else. Vexstar finally managed to steady himself by grabbing onto the table. You are still just 1 human against 12 warriors. No, Jake said. I am death against 12 victims. Outside the conference room, Maria Santos was getting more worried. She had called for help, but the station security was taking too long to respond. We need to get in there now, she told Sergeant Lopez. I am trying, Lopez said. He was working on the door controls with a small tool. The lock system has been changed. This is not a malfunction. Someone locked this door on purpose. Maria's face went white. They are trying to kill him. Maybe, Lopez said. But the ambassador is tougher than he looks. I have seen his file. There are parts of it that are classified above my level. Inside the room, Jake was ready to begin. The Zephyrians were floating helplessly in zero gravity, their weapons useless. In the weightless environment, they had expected to fight a weak human diplomat. Instead, they were facing something that their worst nightmares had not prepared them for. Shall we begin? Jake asked politely. The battle was about to start. Jake moved through the zero gravity like he was born in space. The Zephyrian warriors floated around him like confused insects, trying to aim their weapons while spinning slowly through the air. The first warrior to die was the one closest to Jake. The alien had managed to grab onto a wall panel and was trying to steady his plasma rifle. Jake flew at him like a bullet, using the wall to push off and change direction. His small blade found the gap in the Zephyrian's armor at the neck. The warrior died without making a sound. "One," Jake said quietly. War Chief Vexstar roared in anger. "Kill him! Kill the human!" But the Zephyrians could not control their movement in the weightless room. When they fired their plasma guns, the energy blasts sent them spinning backward. Jake used this against them, positioning himself so their shots would hit each other. Two warriors fired at the same time. Jake twisted in the air and moved aside. The plasma blasts hit the warriors behind him instead. The aliens screamed as the energy burned through their armor. 3 and 4, Jake counted. Jake's suit had small thrusters that let him move exactly where he wanted to go. He was like a deadly shark swimming through water. While the Zephyrians were like drowning swimmers, the fifth warrior tried to use his claws instead of his gun. He pushed off from the ceiling and flew at Jake with his arms spread wide. Jake waited until the last second, then used his own thruster to spin around the warrior's attack. His blade cut through the alien's side as he passed. 5, Vexstar finally managed to grab onto the conference table. He pulled himself around to the other side and tried to use it as cover. "You cannot kill us all, human." "Watch me," Jake replied. Jake flew toward the table, but instead of going over it, he went under it. The Zephyrians were not expecting this. They had aimed their weapons at the top of the table. Jake came up from below and attacked the sixth warrior before the alien could react. 6. The seventh warrior was smarter. He had found a corner of the room where he could brace himself against two walls. This gave him a stable platform to shoot from. He aimed carefully and fired. Jake saw the plasma bolt coming. He could not dodge it completely, but he turned his body so it hit his armored shoulder instead of his chest. The energy burned through the outer layer of his suit, but the armor underneath protected him. "Close," Jake said, "but not close enough." Jake threw his blade at the warrior. In zero gravity, the knife flew straight and true. It hit the alien in the chest and went through his armor. The warrior tried to pull it out, but Jake was already moving toward him. 7. Jake pulled his blade out of the dead warrior and looked for the next target. There were 5 Zephyrians left, including Vexstar. The 8th warrior had grabbed onto a light fixture on the ceiling. He was trying to swing himself around to get a clear shot at Jake, but Jake was faster. He used the wall to push off and flew straight up. His blade found the warrior's throat. 8. The 9th and 10th warriors tried to work together. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the room and fired at the same time. Jake was trapped between their shots, but Jake had faced this situation before. He activated both thrusters on his suit and shot straight down toward the floor. The plasma bolts passed over his head and hit the walls behind him. Jake hit the floor hard and used it to bounce back up. He flew toward the 9th warrior with his blade ready. The alien tried to block with his arm, but Jake's knife cut through the limb and into the warrior's chest. 9. The 10th warrior was now alone on his side of the room. Jake threw his blade at him, but the warrior managed to dodge it. The knife stuck in the wall behind the alien. "Ha!" the warrior said. "You missed." "Did I?" Jake asked. Jake activated his thrusters and flew toward the wall where his blade was stuck. He grabbed the knife and used the wall to change direction. Now he was flying straight at the 10th warrior, who had no time to react. 10. Now only 2 Zephyrians were left alive. Vexstar was still holding on to the conference table. And the 11th warrior was floating near the door. The 11th warrior was the biggest one after Vexstar. He had thick armor and long claws. He pushed off from the door and flew at Jake with his claws spread wide. Jake waited for him to get close, then grabbed the warrior's arm and used the alien's own momentum against him. In zero gravity, it was easy to redirect the warrior's movement. Jake spun the alien around and drove his blade into the warrior's back. 11. Now only Vexstar was left. The war chief was still holding onto the table, but his eyes were wide with fear. He had seen Jake kill 11 elite warriors in just a few minutes. "You are a monster," Vexstar said. "No," Jake replied. "I am what humans become when you threaten." Isaac flew toward the table. Vexstar tried to shoot him, but his hands were shaking. The plasma bolt went wide and hit the ceiling. Jake landed on the table and looked down at the war chief. "You wanted to send a message to the galaxy about humans. Consider this my reply." "Wait," Vexstar said. "We can make a deal. The Zephyrians will leave human space alone." "Too late for that," Jake said. "You should have thought about deals before you decided to kill a diplomat." Jake raised his blade. Vexstar tried to pull out a backup weapon, but Jake was faster. The blade came down and ended the war chief's life. 12. Jake floated in the middle of the room, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies. His suit was damaged, and he had some burns, but he was alive. The Zephyrians were all dead. Jake pressed a button on his device. The artificial gravity came back on. The bodies of the warriors fell to the floor with heavy thuds. Jake landed gracefully and straightened his tie. He walked back to the conference table and put his blade away. His suit began to fold back into its normal appearance. The weapon system collapsed back into a briefcase. In seconds, he looked like a normal diplomat again. Jake picked up his diplomatic badge from the table and put it back in his pocket. Then, he activated the room's communication system. "Lieutenant Santos," he said in his normal, calm voice. "Ambassador." Maria's voice came through the speaker. "Are you all right? We have been trying to reach you for an hour." "I am fine," Jake said. "The negotiations are complete. The Zephyrians have agreed to all our terms." "All your terms?" Maria sounded surprised. "Yes," Jake said as he looked around the room at the dead warriors. "They were very reasonable once we had a chance to talk." Jake opened his briefcase and began to put his papers away. He had a report to write and another diplomatic mission to prepare for. There were other alien races that needed to learn about humanity's commitment to peace. The conference room door opened. Maria Santos and the guards rushed in. They stopped when they saw the bodies on the floor. "What happened?" Sergeant Lopez asked. "The Zephyrians attacked me," Jake said simply. "I defended myself." Maria stared at the dead warriors. "You killed 12 of them by yourself?" "They were not as tough as they thought," Jake said. "Shall we return to the ship? I have a report to write." As they walked out of the room, Jake looked like the same mild-mannered diplomat who had entered, but now Maria and the guards knew the truth. Their ambassador was not just a man who liked to talk, he was death in disguise. Jake Collins walked calmly out of the conference room, straightening his tie as if he had just finished a normal business meeting. Behind him, 12 dead Zephyrian warriors lay scattered across the floor. Maria Santos and the 2 guards followed him in shocked silence. "Sir," Maria finally said as they walked through the station corridors, "how did you do that?" Jake smiled his gentle smile. "Do what, Lieutenant?" "Kill 12 alien warriors by yourself," Sergeant Lopez said. "Those were elite fighters in full armor." "They were not as elite as they thought," Jake replied. "And they made the mistake of fighting on my terms instead of theirs." The 3 humans who had waited outside the conference room were seeing their ambassador in a completely new way. The man they had thought was just a diplomat had revealed himself to be something much more dangerous. As they walked through Nexus Prime, other aliens stopped to stare at them. Word was already spreading about what had happened in Conference Room 12. The Zephyrians had been feared throughout the galaxy for their violence and strength. Now they were all dead, killed by one human diplomat. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens approached them. Their leader, Ambassador Corrin, who had greeted them earlier, looked nervous. "Ambassador Collins," Corrin said, "we heard about the unfortunate incident with the Zephyrians. Are you injured?" "Not seriously," Jake said, "but I am afraid the Zephyrians will not be able to continue their mining operations in the Kepler system. They have decided to withdraw all their claims." "I see," Corrin said. His eyes were wide with fear. "And what about the mining rights?" Jake stopped walking and looked at the alien diplomat. "I believe Earth would be interested in discussing those rights with other races, peaceful races who prefer negotiation to violence." "Yes, of course," Corrin said quickly. "The Altarian Council would be very interested in such discussions." "Excellent," Jake said. "I will contact you tomorrow to arrange a meeting." As they continued walking toward their ship, Maria noticed that every alien they passed stepped aside to let them through. The station that had been busy and noisy when they arrived was now quiet and respectful. "They are all afraid of you," Maria said. "They are afraid of what I represent," Jake corrected. "I am not the only human with my particular skills. There are others like me working throughout the galaxy." Sergeant Lopez looked confused. "How many others?" "That information is classified," Jake said. "But I can tell you that Earth's diplomatic corps is very well protected." They reached the docking bay where Tara's voice was waiting. Captain Murphy was standing by the entrance, looking worried. "Ambassador," Murphy said, "I have been getting strange reports from the station. Something about a fight in the conference room. The negotiations became more intense than expected," Jake said, "but everything worked out in the end." Murphy looked at the group of aliens who had gathered to watch them leave. They all looked terrified. "They have learned something important about humans today," Jake said. "Sometimes the best way to keep peace is to show others what happens when peace is broken." They boarded the ship and prepared to leave the station. As Tara's voice undocked and moved away from Nexus Prime, Jake went to his cabin to write his report. Maria followed him. "Sir, I need to ask you something." "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Are you really a diplomat or are you something else?" Jake sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. "I am both. I have been Earth's ambassador for 20 years and I have negotiated dozens of peaceful agreements. But I am also Agent 77 Alpha, and I have eliminated threats to humanity when necessary." "How many people know about your other job?" "Very few," Jake said. "My diplomatic work is real. I prefer to solve problems with words rather than violence. But sometimes violence is the only language that certain aliens understand." Maria sat down in the chair across from his desk. "The Zephyrians wanted to kill you from the beginning. They never planned to negotiate." "I know," Jake said. "My sources told me about their plan before we arrived. They wanted to make an example of me to frighten other humans." "So you walked into their trap on purpose?" "Yes," Jake said. "It was the only way to get close enough to eliminate their leadership. The Zephyrians have been planning attacks on human colonies for months. Now they will not be able to carry out those attacks." Jake began typing his report. Maria watched him work, still trying to understand what had happened. "Will you tell Earth Command what really happened?" she asked. "I will tell them that the Zephyrian threat has been eliminated and that other alien races are now more interested in peaceful cooperation with humans," Jake said. "The details are not important. But you saved human lives today. People should know about that." Jake looked up from his laptop. "The best victories are the ones that prevent wars from starting. If other aliens believe that all human diplomats are as dangerous as I am, they will be more careful about threatening us." "Are all human diplomats like you?" "No," Jake said. "Most of them are exactly what they appear to be. Peaceful negotiators who genuinely want to avoid violence. But some of us are different. We are placed in positions where we might encounter the worst threats to humanity." Maria was quiet for a moment. "How long have you been doing this?" 20 years, Jake said. "I started as a real diplomat, but Earth Command noticed that I had certain talents. They trained me for special operations while I continued my diplomatic career. Do you ever feel bad about killing?" Jake stopped typing and looked at her. I feel bad about the necessity of it. Every alien I have killed was someone who wanted to hurt innocent humans. The Zephyrians were planning to attack colony ships full of families. Children would have died. So you see yourself as a protector? I see myself as a tool, Jake said. I am used when other tools fail. Diplomacy is always the first choice. Violence is the last choice. Over the next few days, news of what happened on Nexus Prime spread throughout the galaxy. The story grew with each telling. Some aliens said that Jake had fought 50 Zephyrian warriors. Others said he had destroyed them with his bare hands. The truth was frightening enough, but the legends were even more terrifying. 3 weeks later, Jake received a communication from Earth Command. He was being assigned to another diplomatic mission. The Corvan Empire was making threats against human trade routes. They needed to be reminded about the value of peaceful cooperation. Jake packed his briefcase and prepared for another mission. Maria Santos had requested a transfer to a different ship. She said she needed time to think about what she had learned. Jake understood. Not everyone could handle the truth about what humanity was willing to do. To protect itself, as Terra's voice traveled toward Phase, Jake received messages from other alien diplomats. The Altarian Council wanted to discuss mining rights. The Centauri Federation was offering new trade agreements. The Rigel Alliance was proposing a mutual defense pact. All of these offers had arrived after news of the Zephyrian incident reached their homeworlds. Jake's reputation as a peaceful diplomat had not been damaged by the violence. Instead, it had been enhanced. Other races now knew that humans were serious about their diplomatic offers. Captain Murphy brought Jake a cup of coffee as he worked on his preparations for the Corvan mission. Sir, Murphy said, I have been thinking about what happened on Nexus Prime. What about it? You could have told us who you really were. We would have been better prepared to help you. Jake shook his head. If you had known, you would have acted differently. The Zephyrians were watching you too. They needed to believe that I was just a normal diplomat with normal guards. But we could have been killed if things went wrong. Things did not go wrong, Jake said. I had backup plans. If the situation had been different, you would have been evacuated before the fighting started. Murphy sat down. How many others? Like you are there? Enough, Jake said. Earth has learned that the galaxy is a dangerous place. We prefer peace, but we are prepared for war. And nobody knows about this? Some people know, Jake said. The right people. But most humans live their lives without ever learning about the threats we face. That is how it should be. Jake finished his coffee and returned to his work. The Corvan Empire was about to learn the same lesson that the Zephyrians had learned. Humans were not weak, they were not defenseless. And they were not alone. In the depths of space, other ships carried other diplomats to other worlds. Some of those diplomats were exactly what they appeared to be. Others carried briefcases that held more than just papers and pens. The galaxy was learning to respect humanity. Not because humans were the strongest or the most violent, but because they were the most unpredictable. A human diplomat might solve your problems with words and compromise. Or he might solve them with death and silence. Jake Collins closed his laptop and prepared for his next mission. War Chief Vexstar had wanted to send a message to the galaxy about human weakness. Instead, he had sent a very different message. Humans were not to be underestimated. Ever. The galaxy was starting to understand that when you attacked a human diplomat, you never knew what you might find underneath the peaceful exterior. You might find a negotiator who wanted to talk. Or you might find death in disguise. Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars. The Corvan Empire was about to find out which one they would get.